Is the scandalous corruption of our political campaigns also undermining our response to the environmental crisis? As a specialist journalist operating in a specific field, whenever a big story breaks, I mean a really big story, the temptation is to search for the angle that applies to the topic you know best. Sometimes this can be a stretch. Is there a renewable energy angle on the MP's expenses crisis? Where is the green business interest in the royal wedding? But with the unfolding scandal engulfing Cambridge Analytica and Facebook, a genuinely huge story if ever there was one, you do not have to apply too excessive a crowbar to find several intriguing, big-picture environmental components. First up, anyone who followed the debates surrounding climate change over the past 2 decades will have experienced a wearying sense of familiarity as they watch the shock victory of the Brexit campaign and the political ascent of Donald Trump. The president wasn't just a climate skeptic, he was a student, and then a master, of the climate skeptic playbook. It was all there: contempt for experts, cherry-picked data, accusations that your opponents weren't just mistaken, but crooked, a refusal to ever apologize or correct the record, fake news, teach the controversy, desire to exploit the media's obsession with false balance, the death of nuance, the reckless embrace of risk. Trump and his advisors, not to mention several of the leading Brexit campaigners, took techniques perfected by climate skeptic lobbyists, applied them to every issue going, and weaponized them for the social media age. Behind all the technical wizardry at Cambridge Analytica, the algorithms, and the psychometric warfare, there were simplistic campaign messages designed to stoke confusion and dumb down complex issues. The thread that runs from the tobacco industry's years of amoral misinformation, through the climate wars, to Cambridge Analytica's turbocharged fake news is as obvious as it is utterly dispiriting. Lobbyist dirty tricks, puppet candidates, plausible deniability, a willingness to make common cause with petro-state authoritarians, it is all achingly familiar to anyone who has spent any time around climate skeptic campaigns or the murkier end of the global energy industry. As the DSMOG website has documented this week, it even turns out that several of the key characters in both scandals are precisely the same people. It's a small world. A small world that is getting hotter with each decade. Second, there are the obvious risk management lessons contained in Facebook's Greek tragedy-level hubris and cloth-eared response to the crises. The simple reality is that the more complex a system becomes, be it digital or physical, the more points of vulnerability arise. As the retail industry could tell you, handing responsibility off to third parties and pointing the finger at them when things go wrong, simply won't cut it anymore, not with customers, not with regulators, and not with investors. If you are the biggest name in a corporate chain, you will end up owning the scandal no matter where it originates. Audits need to be regular, robust, and, if necessary, ruthless. Partner and supplier contracts need to be policed and enforced. We are entering an age of metastasis risk. The ubiquity of digital networks and the mixture of opportunities and vulnerabilities they bring with them, coupled with the escalating impacts from climate collapse, means risk management is set to move from adult compliance issue to a core necessity for any corporate with hopes for longevity. But there is also something bigger going on here that has serious implications for the global response to the climate threat. The practice of micro-targeting may be employed by every political party and large business, but it's essentially a populist and divisive approach. It is about identifying a narrow demographic, a shared sense of values, be they liberal, socialist, illiberal, conservative or authoritarian, and pandering to them as shamelessly as possible. Messages of aggressive reassurance aimed at a single, relatively small demographic then almost inevitably result in the reinforcing of prejudice and the stoking of division. Add in the way in which only the target demographic will see these messages and you also have fertile soil for exaggeration, fake news, and conspiracy theory. There is no leadership to be found in this sort of campaigning, no progressive vision. It is backwards looking, make America great again, take back control. It builds both digital and physical walls, rather than tears them down. As the journalist Hugo Rifkind observed in an essential Twitter thread, not every candidate could successfully deploy the Cambridge Analytica modus operandi. Nobody credibly claims that social media targeting etc. could take literally any candidate or platform and trick it to victory, he wrote. In fact, the landscape favors particular candidates, and particular platforms. It favors the populist, the clickbaity, the outrage-causing, shareable. Clinton couldn't have done Trump's campaign, because he didn't have his policies, or platform or personality. This is why when people say, Obama did this, they are not quite telling the truth. He could have, he didn't. Because his policies weren't about division. It should be obvious that this form of politics is antithetical to global decarbonization and climate action. Its inherent divisiveness is the precise opposite of the sense of shared endeavor and international cooperation contained in the Paris Agreement. No wonder Trump hates the treaty so much. It is the diametric opposite of everything he believes. It should also be obvious that the digital tools and murky campaigning tactics deployed by Cambridge Analytica are most brutally effective in the hands of nationalists whose raison d'etre is divisiveness and whose understanding of the world is one of zero-sum competition. As such, they strengthen those who are most likely to be opposed to climate action on the simple grounds that they instinctively oppose